Midnight, 1978. Neon lights flickering against a dark street. The automatic doors of 7-Eleven store slide open, and cold air-conditioned air rushes out. Inside, under bright fluorescent lights, colorful Slurpee machines are humming. Shelves packed with Hostess Twinkies, Twizzlers, Tab Colas. But this isn't just a store. This is a silent revolution in American culture. And tonight, I'm taking you back to 1978, to the golden age of night shopping. Now, let me tell you something. What happened at 7-Eleven in 1978 wasn't just shopping. This was a social revolution. Think about it for a moment. No one had ever thought about going out at midnight to buy ice cream before. No one could get newspapers, cigarettes, and hot coffee at 3 a.m. while pumping gas. And absolutely no one could have predicted that these places we call convenience stores would become the center of American lifestyle. But that's exactly what happened. And right now you're asking, why does this matter so much? Because 1978 was the year everything changed. That year, 7-Eleven opened its 5,000th store. Slurpee sales went through the roof. And Hostess Twinkie wasn't just a snack anymore. It became a cultural icon. When these three things came together, the DNA of American consumer culture was transformed. And the story I'm about to tell you isn't just nostalgia. This is about how capitalism works, how brands are created, and how society's nightlife was transformed. Are you ready? Let's begin. To understand 1978, we need to take a step back first. The 7-Eleven story actually begins in 1927. Yes, you heard that right, 1927. In Dallas, Texas, a man named Joe C. Thompson Jr. starts stocking milk, eggs, and bread on the shelves of the Southland Ice Company. The logic is simple. People come to buy ice. Why not sell them other things? At first, the store was open from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. That's where the name comes from, 7-Eleven. But when the 1960s and 70s arrived, everything started changing. The American lifestyle was accelerating. People were working more. Women were entering the workforce. Families were realizing they had less time. And cities never slept anymore. In 1963, the first 24-hour 7-Eleven store opened in Austin, Texas. And this was the beginning of the revolution. Now think about it. In the early 1960s, if you wanted to buy something at midnight, what were your options? Nothing. Maybe a gas station. Maybe a sketchy shop in a back alley. But a bright, clean, safe place didn't exist. 7-Eleven saw this gap and filled it. By the 1970s, 7-Eleven wasn't just a convenience store anymore. It was becoming a lifestyle. Workers coming off the night shift, college students, people taking cabs home, they all met in the same place. And in 1978, the company achieved incredible success. They opened their 5,000th store. This wasn't just a number. This meant there was a 7-Eleven in every American city, every neighborhood, even in some rural areas. But they weren't just building with numbers. They were creating a culture. Now, let's talk about the Slurpee. Because this drink, this icy, sugary, brain-freeze-inducing drink, became the symbol of 7-Eleven. The Slurpee was invented in 1966, but by 1978, it had become a phenomenon. We're talking about selling 6 million Slurpees per month. That's roughly 200,000 Slurpees every single day. But why? Why did this frozen drink capture America's imagination? First, it was innovative. Before Slurpee, you had soda, you had ice cream. But a frozen carbonated beverage? That was new. The texture was unique. Not quite liquid, not quite solid. It was something you had to experience. Second, it was customizable. You could mix flavors. Cherry Coke, orange grape, wild combinations that kids dreamed up. This was before Starbucks made customization mainstream. 7-Eleven was doing it first in 1978 with Slurpees. Third, and this is crucial, it was cheap. In 1978, you could get a large Slurpee for about 50 cents. For teenagers with limited money, this was heaven. You could hang out, stay cool, and not break the bank. But here's the deeper story. The Slurpee represented something bigger. It was about freedom. Freedom to go out at any hour. freedom to mix flavors however you wanted, freedom from the rigid rules of sit-down restaurants and formal dining. By 1978, the Slurpee had transcended being just a product. It was a social lubricant. Kids met at 7-Eleven for Slurpees. First dates happened over Slurpees. Late-night study sessions were fueled by Slurpees. 7-Eleven understood this. They promoted Slurpee season every summer. They created collectible cups. They even invented Free Slurpee Day on July 11th, 7/11, get it? Which started in 2002 but had its roots in the promotional culture of the 70s. The machine itself became iconic. That swirling, churning motion. The way the frozen drink slowly filled your cup. The sound of the lid snapping on. These sensory experiences created memories. And let's be honest, the brain freeze was part of the charm. That sharp, cold pain that hit your forehead when you drank too fast. Kids competed over who could handle it. It was a badge of honor. Now, we need to talk about the Hostess Twinkie, because in 1978, this golden sponge cake with cream filling wasn't just a snack. It was an American institution. Twinkies had been around since 1930, invented during the Great Depression as an affordable treat. But by the 1970s, they had achieved something remarkable. They had become culturally immortal. In 1978, Americans were buying Twinkies by the billions. Not millions, billions. The production line never stopped. Hostess factories were churning out 500 million Twinkies every year. But why Twinkies? What made this particular snack so special? First, the mythology. There was this widespread belief that Twinkies lasted forever. People joked that Twinkies could survive a nuclear apocalypse. This wasn't true. They had a shelf life of about 25 days. But the myth persisted, and myths are powerful. Second, the consistency. Every Twinkie was exactly the same. In a chaotic world, there was something comforting about that. You knew exactly what you were getting. No surprises. No disappointments. Third, the nostalgia factor. By 1978, Twinkies had been around for nearly 50 years. Parents who ate Twinkies as kids in the 1930s and 40s were now buying them for their children. It was a multi-generational bond. But here's where 7-Eleven comes in. The convenience store became the temple of Twinkie worship. You could walk in at 2 a.m. and grab a package. No judgment. No questions. Just you and your Twinkie. In 1978, the pairing of 7-Eleven and Hostess products created a perfect symbiosis. 7-Eleven needed products that didn't require refrigeration, that had long shelf lives, that could sit on shelves 24/7. Hostess Twinkies, along with their other products like cupcakes, ding-dongs, and ho-hos, fit perfectly. The cultural impact was enormous. Twinkies appeared in movies, TV shows, and comedy routines. Archie Bunker ate them on All in the Family. Kids traded them at lunch tables. Truck drivers kept them in their cabs. And there was something deeply American about the Twinkie. It was processed, artificial, mass-produced, but it was ours. It represented post-war American optimism, the triumph of food science, the democratization of dessert. By 1978, something profound was happening in American cities. The night was no longer something to fear. It was something to embrace. 7-Eleven played a crucial role in this transformation. Their bright lights became beacons of safety. The stores became de facto community centers after dark. Think about who was using 7-Eleven at night in 1978. Night shift workers, nurses, factory workers, security guards, stopping by before or after their shifts. 7-Eleven was their lifeline. When everything else was closed, 7-Eleven was there with hot coffee, sandwiches, and a friendly face behind the counter. College students pulling all-nighters. They'd make midnight runs for snacks, energy drinks, well, Tab and Joe Cole in those days, and anything to keep them awake. The fluorescent lights of 7-Eleven were as familiar as their dorm rooms. Cab drivers and truckers. These were the road warriors of the 70s. They needed fuel, both for their vehicles and themselves. 7-Eleven became their pit stop, their oasis. Teenagers escaping suburban boredom. In 1978, if you were 16 and bored out of your mind, 7-Eleven was the destination. It was somewhere to go, something to do, hang out in the parking lot, with a Slurpee, maybe meet some friends. But it wasn't just about who was there, it was about what it represented. The 24-hour convenience store symbolized modernity, progress, and a new kind of freedom. You weren't bound by traditional retail hours. You could live on your own schedule. This was radical. For most of human history, nighttime meant shutting down, going home, ending activities. But in 1978 America, particularly in cities, night became just another part of the day. Crime rates were actually a concern in the 70s. They were higher than today. But 7-Eleven stores, with their bright lights and visibility, became islands of safety. Police officers would stop by for coffee. The stores became informal neighborhood watch posts. There was also an egalitarian aspect. Rich or poor, everyone was equal at 7-Eleven at 3 a.m. The doctor buying coffee stood in line with the janitor buying a hot dog. The businessman in a suit and the punk rocker with a mohawk browsed the same aisles. So, why does 1978 matter? Why does a specific year in 7-Eleven history deserve our attention? Because 1978 was the tipping point. It was a year when convenience store culture went from being a novelty to being a necessity. It was when Slurpees and Twinkies stopped being just products and became cultural touchstones. The world that 7-Eleven helped create in 1978 is the world we live in today. We take 24/7 access for granted now. We expect to be able to buy anything at any time. We assume that cities never sleep. But someone had to create that expectation. Someone had to build that infrastructure. And in 1978, 7-Eleven was leading that charge. The innovations of that era, the extended hours, the focus on convenience, the creation of signature products like Slurpee, these became the blueprint for modern retail. Amazon's promise of anytime delivery? That's just 7-Eleven's promise taken digital. The Twinkies' cultural staying power, surviving bankruptcy, becoming a meme, being referenced constantly in pop culture, shows the power of nostalgia marketing. Brands today chase that same immortality. And the Slurpee? It proved that sometimes the experience is more important than the product. People don't just buy Slurpees for the taste. They buy them for the memory, the ritual, the feeling. As we close out this journey back to 1978, I want you to imagine something. Imagine walking into a 7-Eleven on a warm summer night in July 1978. The automatic doors slide open with that distinctive whoosh. Cool air hits your face. The fluorescent lights are almost blinding after the darkness outside. You walk to the Slurpee machine. Maybe you pick cherry. Maybe you mix Coca-Cola and orange. You grab a Twinkie from the shelf. They're on sale, 2 for $1. You pick up a magazine, maybe Rolling Stone or TV Guide. At the counter, the clerk barely looks up. They've seen hundreds of customers tonight already. You pay with coins and crumpled dollar bills. The register dings open. You walk back out into the night, Slurpee in hand, Twinkie in your pocket. The neon 7-Eleven sign glows behind you. Somewhere, a car drives by playing disco on the radio. This moment, this simple, mundane moment, was revolutionary. And we're still living in the revolution it created. So here's my question for you. What's your 7-Eleven memory? What late-night convenience store moment sticks with you? Was it a post-concert Slurpee run? A midnight snack attack? A road trip pit stop that became an adventure? Think about it. Because these small moments, these convenience store moments, they're part of our collective memory. They're part of who we are. If this journey back to 1978 resonated with you, if you found yourself nodding along or remembering your own experiences, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button, because we're going to keep exploring these cultural moments, these seemingly small things that shaped our world. There are more stories to tell, more years to explore, more cultural revolutions hiding in plain sight. Until next time, keep those memories alive. And maybe, just maybe, go grab yourself a Slurpee. You know you want to.